A young girl was casually shopping in a supermarket, unaware that the perverted store owner had been eyeing her. Seeing no one around, he made his move, reaching out with malicious intent. Instinctively, the girl resisted, but the vile man had no intention of stopping. In the end, this innocent girl was harmed. The man acted with such impunity because the girl was an orphan and had an intellectual disability. After committing the crime, instead of feeling any guilt, he boasted about it to a local photo studio owner. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Soon, the photo studio owner, under the guise of taking pictures, committed the same wrongdoing against the girl. He then told a mechanic about it, and unsurprisingly, the mechanic also joined in. One day, the mechanic accidentally left the girl's underwear in a customer's car. What was worse, the customer did not report the mechanic but instead joined in as well, adding another predator to the list. Meanwhile, the girl's odd behavior began to raise suspicion from her older sister, Park Se-wan. Due to her intellectual disabilities and having suffered terrible treatment, no matter how much Park Se-wan pressed her, her sister remained silent. The next day, Park Se-wan waited outside her sister's school and watched in shock as her sister hesitantly got into a luxury car. Park Se-wan followed the car, only to find that it led to a hotel. In the hotel, the man even forced her to take illegal drugs. At that moment, a furious Park Se-wan barged into the room with a screwdriver. In the ensuing struggle, she accidentally stabbed the man in the eye. Without hesitation, she fled with her sister. Park Se-wan prepared to take her sister and leave this place. What they didn't know was that the man was a high-ranking congressman. As a result, Park Se-wan was sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison for assault. While she was behind bars, the girl's nightmare continued. She endured the relentless harm from the predators and was also bullied at school. Then, she was left to endure these agonizing days and nights all alone. The day had finally come for her sister's release from prison. In the simple and innocent world of the younger sister, seeing her big sister again seemed to erase all her worries. That night, as they got ready for bed, the younger sister casually mentioned how much she hated going to school. Park Se-wan didn't think much of it, assuming her sister was just reluctant to attend school like any other kid. The next day, her sister, still obedient, went to school as asked, even saving up to buy a new outfit as a gift to celebrate Park Se-wan's return. Everything seemed to be moving in a positive direction. Little did they know, that very outfit would soon become the armor Park Se-wan would wear to avenge her sister. That evening, Park Se-wan cooked a full meal, eagerly waiting for her sister to come home from school. But after waiting by the door for a long time, her sister was still nowhere to be seen. She had no idea that her younger sister had once again been cornered by a group of school bullies in the classroom.
오늘은 그냥 보내주면 안 될까?
뒤에 뭐래니?
우리 언니 왔어.
The bullies paid no attention to the girl's desperate pleas. A nearby female classmate glanced over out of curiosity but was immediately hit with a backpack. They dragged the girl to a KTV, where, just like before, they humiliated her and recorded the entire process on their phones. After growing bored, they called in a group of local thugs. One of the men, noticing the girl's beauty, came up with a way to make quick money, forced the girl to do some unspeakable things. Once the men were ensnared, this group would rush in, threatening them for their inappropriate behavior. Most of the terrified men would pay to keep things quiet. That night, their scheme worked flawlessly, and they made a lot of money. But as the saying goes, the more you walk by the river, the more likely you are to get wet. This time, when they entered the room, they found a man with a full back tattoo, often a sign of organized crime in Korea. The thugs, terrified, were out of their depth. The tattooed man saw through their scam immediately. Trying to pull a con in front of him was like showing off swords to a master swordsman, completely foolish. In the end, they were severely beaten and forced to sign a contract, selling the girl into the gangsters' control. Meanwhile, Park Se-wan was frantically searching the streets for any trace of her sister. She searched late into the night, but there was no sign of her. With no other options, she returned home to wait. At dawn, she tried calling her sister again, but the phone was still off. Desperate, she went to her sister's school to ask her homeroom teacher for information. However, the teacher's attitude left Park Se-wan heartbroken. Not only was the teacher indifferent to her sister's disappearance, but they even complained that a girl with an intellectual disability shouldn't have been sent to school in the first place. Just as Park Se-wan was about to leave in frustration, a female student, who had also been bullied in the past, stopped her. She showed Park Se-wan a video of her sister being tormented by the school bullies. Park Se-wan froze, overwhelmed with shock. Ever since their parents passed away, she had vowed to protect her sister, who was born with an intellectual disability, but she had failed, allowing her sister to suffer repeatedly. Guilt and regret surged through her. She was determined to make every single person who hurt her sister pay.
은혜 어딨어?
아, 깜빵 갔다 온 은혜 언니? 우린 아무것도 모르니까 그냥 가세요.
Upon realizing she was the girl's older sister, one of the thugs instinctively tried to fight back, but he was no match for Park Se-wan. With just one move, she overpowered him, forcing him to reveal everything that had happened the previous night. Upon hearing the details, Park Se-wan was filled with rage, wanting to kill the scumbags right then and there, but she knew her top priority was to find her sister every minute she delayed. Her sister was in greater danger. She dialed the number from the business card, only to find it was a fake number. With no other choice, she reluctantly decided to go to the police for help. Yet the slow, bureaucratic process of the police left her feeling helpless and frustrated. Meanwhile, the tattooed man passed the girl onto someone else. However, since the girl had an intellectual disability, she had to undergo training before being put to work. The pimp decided to personally test the girl's quality, but things didn't go as planned. Panicked, the girl bit him hard in a sensitive area.
아이 미친 개또라이가.
Enraged, the pimp immediately contacted the tattooed man, demanding a refund. At the same time, Park Se-wan had arrived at the address listed on the business card. After roughing up the man she found there, she quickly realized he was just a low-level lackey. All he knew was the tattooed man's license plate number and where he frequently parked. Seeing that the man didn't seem to be lying, Park Se-wan had no choice but to head to the parking garage. After spotting the target car, she hid, waiting for her chance. Hours passed before the sound of the engine starting jolted her awake, and she immediately followed closely behind. At a sharp corner, without hesitation, Park Se-wan floored the gas pedal and rammed into the car ahead. When she confronted the tattooed man, she was horrified to discover that her sister had been sent to a nightclub. Enraged, Park Se-wan began strangling the man, ready to kill him, but just then, the tattooed man slammed on the gas, causing the car to lose control and crash into the side of the road. Taking advantage of the chaos, the tattooed man grabbed a knife and attacked. However, after a brief fight, he realized something was wrong. He was no match for Park Se-wan. Park Se-wan ruthlessly snapped his arm, breaking it with brutal force. After dealing with the tattooed man, Park Se-wan managed to find the location of the nightclub from his phone. Time was critical, so she rushed to her next destination without delay. Upon arriving at the club, she followed a woman directly to the office.
내 동생 어디로 팔아넘겼어?
Once the pimp learned of her intentions, he didn't bother hiding the truth. He openly admitted that he had already sold the girl to someone else because she was disobedient. Without warning, the pimp launched an attack on Park Se-wan. The two instantly grappled with each other, and in the heat of the struggle, Park Se-wan was stabbed in the abdomen with a pair of scissors. Despite the pain, she knew she had to endure it for the sake of saving her sister. She gritted her teeth and continued fighting, pushing through the agony. Afterward, she locked the pimp's neck in a tight hold. The pimp struggled for air, gasping as he signaled the madam to reveal the girl's whereabouts. It turned out that, upon realizing the girl had an intellectual disability, the pimp had thought of having her call her family to ransom her. Unfortunately, Park Se-wan hadn't been home at the time. Left with no choice, the girl reached out to the supermarket she often visited. Soon after, a man in a suit arrived to take her away. The whole process had been a series of chaotic twists and turns. Despite her injuries, Park Se-wan forced herself to head toward the supermarket. When the store owner realized that the person standing before him was the girl's sister, he panicked. Thinking that his crimes had been exposed and that she was there to confront him, he blurted out every despicable act that had taken place. Hearing what her sister had endured, Park Se-wan's heart shattered. She had vowed to protect her sister, yet her sister had suffered such horrors, and she, as her older sister, had been completely unaware. Furious, Park Se-wan dragged the supermarket owner to the door and demanded to know her sister's whereabouts. However, the owner admitted that he didn't know where she was. He explained that when he realized it was the girl calling, he feared that her family had discovered their vile actions. In his panic, he quickly hung up the phone. After contacting 2 others to inform them of the situation, the mechanic passed the information to Congressman Choi. When Congressman Choi found out, he flew into a rage. Ever since Park Se-wan blinded him in his left eye, he had harbored a deep grudge. He ordered his subordinate, Han Eun-hye, to kill both sisters after Park Se-wan's release from prison. However, Han Eun-hye, knowing the sisters were orphans, had a change of heart.
동생년부터 데려와. 수단, 방법 가리지 말고 무조건 물어봐. 갈게 찢어 먹어줄 테니까.
It turned out that it was Han Eun-hye who had taken the younger sister away, not to harm her but out of sympathy. Park Se-wan mercilessly snapped the man's 2 fingers. Now engulfed by the flames of vengeance, Park Se-wan decided to eliminate the 3 scumbags first, and then continue her search for her sister. For the past 2 years, her sister had been suffering at the hands of many, and only now had Park Se-wan finally uncovered the truth. The school didn't care, the police did nothing, so now she would become an avenging angel and deliver justice herself. She headed to the photo studio, where, without a word, she smashed a picture frame over the owner's head. When he still showed no remorse, Park Se-wan didn't hesitate. She finished him off with the frame. Now only the mechanic remained. With a cold, expressionless face, Park Se-wan walked into his shop, grabbing a heavy iron hammer. The scraping sound of the hammer dragging along the floor echoed like the whisper of death as she approached the mechanic. By this point, Park Se-wan had fully transformed into the embodiment of vengeance. After confirming his identity, she spoke no unnecessary words. These men were old enough to be a father to her younger sister, yet they had committed such despicable acts against a minor. The thought of it pierced her heart with unbearable pain. Even as the man screamed in agony from beneath the car, it wasn't enough to quench the burning fury inside her. Without a second thought, she released the car jack, letting the vehicle crush him beneath its weight. Once inside the car, Park Se-wan contacted Han Eun-hye. Seeing the helpless, innocent girl, Han Eun-hye promised to ensure her sister's safety for the time being and revealed Congressman Choi's current location. After hanging up, Park Se-wan glanced at the handgun in the drawer, her eyes filled with determination. Yes, she had decided to take the risk and end this band of scum once and for all. Soon, she arrived at the enemy's hideout. After taking out the guards outside, she quietly slipped into the room where the congressman was resting. When Congressman Choi woke from his sleep, he found the barrel of a gun pointed directly at his head. Even in such a dangerous situation, he remained unnervingly calm. He glanced toward the door, pretending to be distracted, and then seized the opportunity to knock the gun from Park Se-wan's hand. At that moment, the guards outside rushed in, alerted by the commotion. Though outnumbered, they were no match for Park Se-wan, who swiftly incapacitated them all. By then, Congressman Choi had already fled outside. Without hesitation, Park Se-wan grabbed the gun and chased after him. A high-stakes chase ensued, with both of them racing through the streets. Despite successfully shooting Choi Soon-chil in the shoulder, Park Se-wan's car was forced off the road and came to a stop. The congressman immediately called for backup and assigned his men a special task. The scene shifted to Han Eun-hye, who was now tied up and suspended in midair. Congressman Choi had always relied on his exceptional intuition to rise to power. He knew his location was too secret for anyone but his closest confidants, so he immediately suspected Han Eun-hye, who had once betrayed him. Without hesitation, Congressman Choi plunged the knife deep into Han Eun-hye's neck. Meanwhile, Park Se-wan washed the blood off her face, tucked a lighter into her wrist strap, and prepared for the final showdown. As Choi's men dealt with Han Eun-hye's body, Park Se-wan suddenly crashed her car into the scene, catching them all off guard. They hadn't expected such a bold move, and after their initial shock, they all turned their focus to attacking her. Despite her skills, Park Se-wan was eventually overwhelmed by their sheer numbers. After taking a hard blow to the head, she blacked out and collapsed. But Congressman Choi wasn't done. He wanted to break her spirit entirely, dragging her sister to the window. He taunted Park in AE, trying to crush her mentally. In her dazed state, her sister's faint voice echoed in Park in AE's mind. At that critical moment, Congressman Choi's taunts became a twisted source of strength, and she regained her composure. As if possessed by a force of vengeance, she snatched the knife from her opponent, broke the henchman's arm, and swiftly delivered a fatal slash to his throat. In that instant, no one could stand in her way. After taking down the remaining thugs, she rushed toward the room, only to be ambushed by Congressman Choi from behind. During their fierce struggle, Choi managed to stab her in the same wound she had suffered earlier, but Park in AE, fueled by her determination to save her sister, gritted her teeth and powered through. With a powerful right hook, she knocked Choi to the ground. What followed was a relentless barrage of punches, her fists pounding into his face like raindrops. Even after Congressman Choi had stopped breathing, Park in AE didn't stop. Her rage had completely consumed her. It was only when her sister's faint voice broke through the fog of fury that she finally regained her composure. Ignoring the pain coursing through her body, Park in AE pulled her sister into a tight embrace. In the final scene, the two sisters walk together through the busy streets. The world is vast, but where will they go from here? Where can they find a place to call home? The film was a reflection of the darker sides of modern society, but reality is often even more complex and grim. While the girl in the movie had an older sister willing to sacrifice everything for her, in real life, such tragedies continue to unfold. But will those victims have someone like Park in AE to protect them?